Today we're going to talk about the middle dimension of self, the emotional dimension. We talked last time about the cognitive dimension, awareness, consciousness, intellectualism, knowing that I'm good. Now we're going to move on to feeling not good enough, or transforming that feeling into feeling good enough. And that's found over here, the cognitive, the emotional, and the behavioral. We can move from the emotional feelings of feeling emotionally bad about myself to feeling positive about myself. That's our topic for today. Now, we talk about attachment. Attachment is attaching myself in my upbringing, my early infancy and early years from 0 to 5 years old, being attached emotionally to the primary caregiver. If I have negative attachment, if there was a divorce in the family, separation, or I'm raised by one parent, not the other, or I'm shuttled back and forth between two parents, or I feel unsettled because of a lack of emotional bonding and attachment to a primary caregiver, I may feel wobbly. I may feel emotionally unstable and not sure of myself on an emotional level, which leads to feeling not emotionally good enough. If I am part of a family which is very highly stressed, very loud, very argumentative, screaming and yelling, very volatile parents who are not emotionally stable themselves, or they have marital difficulties, or there's an illness in the family, high stress, or a single parent, then the body language, the stresses, the anxiety of parents can be transferred emotionally to the child, and the child will have them absorbed into their psyche, and they will feel emotionally anxious themselves and emotionally not stable and not good enough. So this is something which is embedded in the nervous system, the psyche, the emotional psyche of the child, and then that leads to an emotional feeling of instability. I'll give you an example. When I was a rabbi of a synagogue in London called the New West End Synagogue, there was a particular member of my synagogue who grew up with a very fantastic mother. And his mother was a widow from the age of 30. And she raised her children by herself. She had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And she would push them in the stroller, a double stroller, around the neighborhood. And people would look at the two children, the 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and let's call the boy Charles and the girl Hannah. And the people who would see the faces of the children, they would say to the mother, "They look so sad." In particular, the boy looked so sad. And the mother confided to me when she was in her 80s that she had a sad disposition. She was so hurt, she was so overwhelmed by being a widow at such a young age that her negativity, her sadness filtered down into the children, and she caused them, because of her negative mood, her sadness, her crying, her depression, she transferred that emotionally to her children, and the children grew up negative. And they grew up with a negative attitude toward life, and they always looked for the bad in other people and looked at the negative in other people rather than the good. So a child's upbringing can have a attachment or negative attachment impact on their emotional upbringing and their psyche. Or if a child will show an art project to a parent and says, "Here is my picture." And the parent says, "Oh, what is that?" "Oh, that looks like scribbling." "What is that?" Oh, that's a picture of a rose." "Oh, that's interesting." If a parent does not give a very positive, warm, encouraging response, and this happens over and over again, where the parents are looking for perfection, looking for brilliance, looking for a prodigy, and they're not giving positive feedback of the child's effort and their creativity and their colors and their energy that they put into the photograph or picture, then the child is going to get the idea that parents don't approve. And parents will convey to the child that they're somehow psychologically not measuring up, not good enough. So this is a formative memory. And if you can think back to your early childhood, from 0 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, think back to moments that happened where you remembered that you were hurt, that you were emotionally put down, criticized, judged, an event that happened that left an emotional imprint on your psyche. That's the first time you started feeling emotionally not good enough. And that is something which has to be undone. That has to be revealed, discovered, and worked with to be able to transform a feeling of negativity, of not good enough. And that imprints itself on our psyche. We have to undo that. We have to unravel that negativity by realizing that that is a child's impression, a child's interpretation of events. That imprints itself on my subconscious mind. And therefore, in the book called The Body Keeps the Score, the body has within it these emotional pains, emotional moments, which are imprinted somewhere in my body. If I feel not good enough, where do you feel it in your body? Most of my clients feel it somewhere in my head. I have a headache, or in my chest, or my solar plexus, or in my stomach. Somewhere in this quadrant, this area here, from mind down to solar plexus, they feel not good enough. And it's actually a physical feeling, not only an emotional feeling, but it transforms itself into a body feeling, which I feel physically negatively bad about myself. I feel the presence of negativity, a heaviness, a weakness, a lethargy within my body. And therefore, this is something which is a block. It's an internal block, an internal psychological block, which has imprinted itself on my body. And I'm carrying that with me in my psyche as I become a teenager and an adult. And therefore, I have to learn that these bad feelings, which I'm carrying with me, are something which I have to become aware of, discover, feel them, and learn how to cope with them by unraveling this feeling and coping with this negative feeling. So when you find the block, the physical pain within yourself, the physical emotional pain in your body mind, it's called the body mind, we have to learn how to unravel and deal with that physical block. And I'll teach you how to do that in a few moments. Now, what are the ways in which we can understand this physical block within ourselves? What is this physical pain that we call not feeling emotionally good enough? So what are the ramifications of feeling this physical block within my psyche? First, if I have a upbringing of a weak supply of unconditional love, and I live with conditional love, if I perform, if I do well in school, if I do well with friends, if I jump well, if I get good grades, then I get love from my parents. If I don't, I get turned back or turned aside or cold shouldered. If I get conditional love instead of unconditional love, together with a temperament of vulnerability and weakness, I will feel emotionally not good enough. Not only intellectually not good enough, but also emotionally not good enough. This will make me feel, secondly, not comfortable in my own skin. If I don't feel in my mind intellectually good about myself, and my emotions here and here don't feel aligned with goodness, feeling positive and robust about myself, then I will learn to feel uncomfortable in my own skin. This will lead to emotional collapse, where I have emotional meltdowns. And when I have this emotional pain within my psyche, then I disconnect from my own self-value and self-worth. Third, it leads to relationships which are unstable. If I don't feel good about myself, I don't feel like I can maintain good, solid, healthy relationships. And I feel slighted easily by a negative comment. I'm not resilient, I'm not robust. I'm not strong in my own emotional self where I can handle and deal with and discuss emotional ups and downs. And therefore, I disconnect from others. Fourth, it derails my neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is that my brain can rewire itself by bouncing back from a setback. If I have a robust self-esteem, if I feel positive, energized about myself, and I feel good about myself, then if I have a setback, I can, after a few moments or hours, bounce back. But if I don't have that emotional resilience within myself, then I will become not able to bounce back from an emotional setback. I may hide socially. I withdraw socially. I become an introvert. I become a person who reads all the time, as opposed to someone who plays sports and gets out there in community because I hide behind reading or internal games or video games instead of interacting with people in the real world. So these 4 dimensions or ramifications of a weak emotional upbringing, a weak emotional temperament within myself, lack of attachment from my parents, emotional attachment, leads to a weak emotional connection. It makes me feel not good enough. Second, it makes me feel emotionally imploded, emotional collapse, meltdown. It affects my relationships. I withdraw from relationships, and I'm unable to bounce back from negative moments and get back in the game. Those 4 ramifications lead to an ultimate feeling, which is very, very powerful and very, very painful, and that is called toxic shame. And this shuts down my nervous system. It shuts down my emotions. It shuts down my personality. And I become a person who's withdrawn emotionally, intellectually, and I withdraw into myself or withdraw into anger or emotional outbursts. Now, what is the difference between healthy guilt and unhealthy guilt, or healthy shame and toxic shame? If I'm doing something outside the norm and I yell out and embarrass people in public, well, if someone calls me out on that and I feel guilty about that, that's healthy guilt, because that is not normative behavior to embarrass somebody in public. If someone calls me out on that and I feel guilty about that, that brings me back in line with normative behavior. That's healthy guilt, which leads to repaired behavior. But if someone consistently calls me out on things for which I'm not guilty of, or I'm put down because I don't meet their standards, or I'm embarrassed in public, or I'm constantly belittled, ridiculed, put down, shamed by other people, then I am going to develop a sense of inner toxic shame. And that is unhealthy guilt that leads to withdrawal and inner pain. Left unchecked, this internal toxic shame will turn into a feeling of, I am not good enough. Not only am I not good enough, but I am intrinsically bad. I'm intrinsically humiliated, shameful, and not a valuable person. I'm a bad person. And when I feel that way, I feel shunned. I feel abandoned. I feel betrayed, isolated, alone, neglected, and I feel rejected, unwanted, excluded, not belonging. My goal of how to transform toxic shame is radical acceptance of myself, to develop a new sense of self, not because someone else gave me an evaluation that didn't meet their standards, but realize that I am entitled to, obligated to find my own personal standards, my own values and belief system, and my own emotional sense of self, my own emotional responsibility. And it is my own responsibility to develop my own emotional equanimity, my own emotional value, my own emotional acceptance within myself. So we begin this process of emotional repair by writing down, what are your values? What do you believe? What's important to you? What are your values? Do you believe in friendship? Do you believe in loyalty? Do you believe in dedication? Do you believe in kindness? Do you believe in giving? Do you believe in fairness? Do you believe in giving to other people? What are your values? What are your beliefs? Do you believe in a higher power? Do you believe in finding the good in other people? Do you want to seek good in other people? Write down your values, a list of values, and write down your beliefs. And I want you to draw a circle, write down those values and beliefs, and I want you to see every day whether you can live by those values. When did you live those values? When did you put those values into practice? But it's not enough to do them, you have to experience them. So how do we work on emotional unraveling the pain of toxic shame and the feeling of not being good enough, and unraveling that emotional pain in my body, mind, in my psyche, and becoming a person who is emotionally valuable, who feels valuable about myself? So for this, we do an emotional guided imagery exercise where you breathe in for 5 seconds, Relax your body. Breathe in again. Relax your shoulders, your back, arms, legs. You do a progressive muscle relaxation. You breathe in. And as you breathe out, on the out breath, you relax the muscles of your jaw. Breathe in and tense up the muscles of your cheeks. And breathe out and relax the muscles of your cheeks. Breathe in and tense up the muscles of your eyes. And relax the muscles of your eyes. Breathe in and relax, tense up the muscles of your brain. And relax the muscles of your brain. Breathe in again. And emotionally relax your body. Physically relax the muscles of your body and just relax. Now leave the world of thinking and enter the world of being. How do you do that? Instead of thinking about life, be. Imagine yourself standing under the blue sky. Just enjoy the blue sky on a sunny day. And just be. Don't think. Just enter into a state of being present under the blue sky. Now, in your mind, I want you to enter into a garden of blue flowers and experience the blue flowers. 100,000 blue flowers in the valley, on a meadow, on a mountain. Smell the flowers. Be present with the blue flowers. I went to a garden of yellow flowers, 100,000 yellow flowers. Daffodils, tulips, on the meadow, in a valley, on a mountain. Lemon trees with yellow lemons. Go and smell the lemons on low-lying branches of lemon trees. Smell the lemons. Experience being present with the lemon trees. Enter a garden of purple flowers, 100,000 purple flowers in a meadow, on a valley, on a mountain. Dark purple, light purple, mauve, violet. Smell them. They smell like lilacs. Experience the scent of purple flowers. I want you to enter into the place which most inspires you. It's a place you've been to in your life. It's a mountain, or a hill, or a hike, or a trail, or a beach, or water, or an orchard, or a garden, your grandparents' backyard. And I want you to go to this place and feel what you feel in this place. What do you feel in this place? This place is a place of emotional being, an emotional safety, an emotional contentment. Being in this place is the antidote to emotional shame, toxic shame. It's the opposite of emotional pain. It's a place of emotional safety, an emotional calm. And do you know why? Because this place represents your best attribute that we discussed in part 2 of our series. On our wheel of strengths, we talked about 6 dimensions of self. And one of those dimensions of self is your personality. In part 2 of our series of workshops on transforming self from not feeling good about yourself to self-worth and self-value, we talked about the wheel of strengths, 6 dimensions of self, and one of those dimensions was your personality. Those are your character traits. Those character traits define you. They are your self-definition. They are your strengths of character, your consistency, leadership, your kindness, compassion, your empathy, your integrity, your creativity, your honesty, your sense of giving, your sense of kindness to others, your sense of creative self, your resilient self, your forgiving self. This beautiful place that you are in right now, whether it's a mountain or an orchard, represents your highest self. There's a correlation between this beautiful place and your best character trait. Your character trait is your best self, your emotionally valuable self, because this is who you really are. You are not really toxic shame. You feel toxic shame. You were embarrassed, you were ridiculed, you were put down, you were shamed by other people. You were put down by circumstances, whether it's a combination of nature or nurture, or just nature or just nurture. But you developed a sense of not good enough, not enough, because of this upbringing, this development, these circumstances. But those things happened to you. You did not choose them. And therefore, since they happened to you, they were foisted upon you, but they were not you. They shaped you, but they didn't define you. Self-definition comes from the sense of self, of who you decide you are. You are your values, you are your beliefs, you are your wheel of strengths, and you are your emotional equanimity, your emotional tranquility, which is this beautiful place that you are in right now, which represents your highest self. If you are a warm, giving person, you're probably loving a beautiful water, an ocean, a lake, where the water gives and flows. If you're a person of creativity and leadership, you're probably seeing an emotional place where you feel emotionally powerful on a mountain or on a bridge or on a hill, where you feel emotionally powerful, where you have vision and you see a great landscape. When you go to a beautiful place, it is a emotional mirror of your true self, of your personality. It is a transformational mirror. It is a metaphysical mirror of your true self. That's the definition of self. Those moments, those events that happened to you, which caused toxic shame, were not done or chosen by you. They were chosen by somebody else. When you choose your own sense of self, when you go to an emotional place of equanimity, of calm, and you choose your own values, and you choose your own beliefs, and you choose your own emotional value by choosing your own identity, your true self, your true character trait, whether it's kindness, whether it's giving, whether it's empathy, whether it's compassion, whether it's honesty, integrity, consistency, whether it's resilience, creativity, forgiving, resilience. Choose who you really are. That is the process of knowing who you really are and to begin to unravel the toxic shame. But it has to be worked on. So I want you to, in addition to writing down your top moments that you're proud of in our last exercise, for this exercise, I want you to write down how you used your best character trait. I want you to go every day for 60 seconds to this beautiful place, gain a sense of emotional calm, emotional value, emotional peace within yourself. Realize that that place is a mirror of your best trait, and I want you to use it. And I want you to write down every day how you use that trait, whether you used it in your relationships, in your career, in your workshop, in your business, wherever you used it in school. I want you to record how you used and applied that sense of self today in your various interpersonal relationships. In this way, we can develop our own sense of self, our own sense of value, to feel emotionally valuable and start to unravel the toxic shame that has been plaguing us for so many years.